All right, so it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Pamela Jackson. Pamela is a certified coach for business and life. Pam is a whole person coach for growth-minded entrepreneurs and business professionals. Building on a 17-year career in marketing and strategic planning for the past 10 years, Pam has been helping entrepreneurial leaders grow thriving enterprises, work less while earning more, and integrate their whole life with a fulfilling sense of purpose. Pam facilitates strategic coaching programs for groups and individuals with a life-giving, heart-centered approach to business. A collaborator at heart, Pam is highly involved in various business and faith communities, including local chambers, professional networks, and marketplace ministries. And I have to tell you that I have been blessed by being able to experience some of Pam's work. And I will tell you that when I think of Pam, I think of this person that's very gifted in creating a very sacred space that you can very easily connect to your humanity and connect to those inspirations that maybe you don't listen to all the time. But Pam has such a gift in creating a space for you to connect with that. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Pam.
Thank you, Hen. That really touched me. I appreciate that. All right. The table talk questions. Let's start there. Did you all have a chance at your tables to get through at least a little bit? Yeah. Was there anything that surprised you about what came up in the discussion for yourself or for others? Maybe not. Yes?
Well, maybe how similar. We really had similar thoughts.
The similarities, yes. Yeah, I would concur. We found that also at our table. And it would be great actually if we could hear one or two examples of what your land is like. So think about for a moment, if you could capture the essence of your land in one word, what would that word be? And just share a couple examples. Collaborative. Inclusive. Balance.
Peace.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Then think about, what does this land say about you and who you are, which is an identity question. And you don't have to answer, for the group, but just think about that. What is it about your land that connects you to your sense of identity? Because identity is what we're going to be talking about today. Identity, for me, simply is about knowing who you are. There's a lot of ideas about entrepreneurs and who they are, because this is a professional group. We're going to set the context in terms of an entrepreneurial perspective. And yet, when you think about it, when people say, oh, entrepreneurs are such and such, right? There's all kinds of descriptions that come up, and many of that we're familiar with. So I want to speak to some of that right away. And this is what society tends to say entrepreneurs are. And these examples actually come from a tremendous resource called Entrepreneurial Strengths Finder, which explores what are the top strengths that people have to be successful in business, specifically as an entrepreneur. And so we recognize, I think, most of these, right? Entrepreneurs are focused, they take risks, they're confident, they're creative types, they're determined and independent, they're always learning and seeking knowledge, they're the experts, and they're really good at promoting, and they are great networkers. They build relationships. This isn't exactly what I'm talking about today, but I do want to address it. These are what I would call characteristics, but in my perspective, successful entrepreneurs know who they are and they know who they are not. So we're going to explore a little bit, what is the question, who are you? Who am I? And so from that realm, we go into what I would call deep identity. So this is an area of, and by the way, I had to throw in a couple diagrams in honor of John Sween. We know he loves these, so I'm sorry he's not here, but he'll have to watch the video. So deep identity is that place of our true self, really. And who are we in our truest self? How do we show up in the world as our true self? And it's really impossible to talk about identity separate from things like personality and core values and passion, because they're all integral. And why this matters is it's also closely connected to purpose. So identity points to purpose. Identity provides clues for our purpose, why we are here. Richard spoke to that so poignantly. And that's what I want to explore today, is we get clues not just to our sense of purpose, but to our sense of worth. Not just why are we here, but who am I and what is my worth? Identity and worth they go hand in hand. I come from a perspective of our true self is something that is divinely designed, and it's bigger than me, and it's something that's life-giving. Sometimes it can be helpful, before we get into who am I truly, is to talk about what are some examples of false identities. So let's look at that. In my 10 years of coaching business owners, these are some of the examples of false identities that I've observed, not just in clients, but in myself, because believe me, owning a business, you come up against a lot of false identities face to face pretty quickly. So for example, a false identity might be, I am what I produce, or I am what I earn. This is a hard one. I noticed when I was offering a leadership course to a client, there was some pushback on the fee. And it was a simple comment made that it sounds a little high. And it really bothered me. And it was really not that they didn't want to pay the fee. There was no comment about that. It was like, it seems a little high. And then I started to ask myself, I was curious about, why does this bother me so much? And as I pondered it with curiosity, I realized it's because my sense of self-worth is attached to whether or not the client was willing to pay, or I perceived the client was willing to pay my fee. And I realized I was entangled. Thank you, Richard, for that term. I was entangled in that fee and identity relationship. Once I was aware of it and was able to start separating it, it became more of a question, okay, well, what's the investment worth? It's not about me. It's about what is the value that's on the table. And that opened up a lot for me in terms of identity and being able to separate myself from what I earn. And the client paid. You know, it wasn't an issue at all. It was my stuff. It was my false identity that I was bringing to the table that was getting in the way. Some other examples might be, I am my credentials. I am my accomplishments. I am my title. I too have chased those little initials after my name, and realized, it's not the little initials, the little letters after my name that make me legitimate. I'm legitimate because I am a person. Other things that I've observed is around performance and success, especially in business. I am how I perform. I am how I succeed. One of the clients that I worked with shared his desire about wanting to take his business to the next level, a higher level, a more profitable money-making level. And then he said to me, but I don't want to lose who I am. And I honored him, and I had to applaud him for that. And I said, yes, we are going to make sure that you keep who you are when we go there, as we go there. Other examples might be, I am what others say about me. Now, this is kind of a two-edged sword, so it can be helpful to pay attention to what others say about us. And it can be harmful. For me, it's helpful to discern, okay, what are others saying that feels true? What feels true and what feels life-giving? What resonates and what actually constricts versus what opens up and feels spacious. A biggie is I am my business. So often we as business owners get entangled and enmeshed in our business as a representation of ourself, whereas actually in business coaching, we help clients to see your business is an asset. It is not who you are. How you do it may reflect who you are, but you are not your business. And why might that be important? Because then your identity isn't tied to how successful the business is. It's not tied to your success. It's not tied to the failure. So important. I am my resume. We've all seen people and know people, maybe we've been those people who felt devalued because our resume wasn't accepted. So we are not our resume. We are so much more than who we are on paper. Any of those resonate? Yeah, okay. So identity is really about a way of being. It's how we show up in the world. So think about when you show up, what impact do you notice in others? Especially when you show up at your best. Who are you when you show up at your best? And what's the impact? And what if you can have impact, positive impact on others around you just by showing up? So that's what I'm talking about being. Being is the way of showing up. Being is the true self. And from that place, the doing flows. So the doing is actually an outcome, a natural outcome of that place of being when it's rightly aligned. We, as a society, tend to focus on the doing as having more value than the being. So there's a lot of tension between doing and being in each of us. And that's just part of our human nature. I'm not sure we can ever really get away from that. But when we are centered in our way of being, in our true self, then the doing just happens. The doing flows. And the work then becomes simply an expression of who you are. How you work, how you are, who you are, informs how you work. When I was in coach training, one of our trainers told us this. He said, who you are is how you coach. And I had to pause about that because I wasn't quite sure I understood. And then as I thought about it over the years, actually, and I started to pay attention to, okay, who am I and how does that affect my coaching? Well, Hen actually explained it. I wasn't anticipating that, but that was so helpful. So what I realized that who I am at the core is really it's a deep desire for sanctuary and safety. And when I am operating in my true self, I show up as a safe place for other people to be themselves, to be who they are supposed to be, and they feel free to do that. So the impact is they share and they feel heard and they feel held and they become open to possibility, they come open to themselves and to others. So I would say if I were to frame an identity statement, for me it would be I am a warm blanket that wraps around people to help them feel safe to be who they are. Okay, and so from that place, the connection happens, the connectedness, that's also part of who I am as a connector. So then people find meaningful connection to who they are, to a greater sense of purpose, and to others around them. They feel connected to meaning and purpose. And that's the impact. So some other examples of people who I noticed seem like they live and work from their true self. And one of those would be Hen for me. I said, there's a person who knows who she is and has discovered who she is and operates from and works from that place. And I would say John as well, Lisa, definitely. And Haifa, who was here last month for Haifa's story? that to me also was a beautiful story of how her work follows who she is. She operates from a place of deep community and family, and her business, which happens to be now Cafe Louvre, definitely expresses that community and that family. Another story I'd like to share is about a dear friend of mine, Tracy Warren. Tracy she's actually founded and established a networking, it's not a networking community so much, it's a co-working community in Linwood called InSpark. And it's a beautiful space, but people come together who own a business or they operate in some professional capacity where they work at home. But this is a place where they can come together and actually get work done, either by themselves without the distractions of home, but more ideally in collaboration with others. So it's a collaborative community for professionals and owners to come together. And it's beautiful. It's quite powerful. I've known Tracy for about 15 years, and over those 15 years, her work has taken on many different expressions. From being a representative and a trainer for a major makeup and skincare company, to selling greeting cards, to consulting for social media and marketing with other business owners, and directing and operating local professional groups like eWomen and such. Lots of different expressions of who she is. Now, her InSpark community, I feel represents her much more truly than ever before. And people notice that. And so I interviewed Tracy and I got her permission to share with you today about her and to invite you also to come and see for yourselves. So Tracy tells me this is who she is. I am a community creator and connector. That's it. The community that she's created in InSpark is collaborative. It comes from a place of we are better together. And she's seen for herself the power in community of shared struggle and shared experience. And that is what's happening. That's the impact. So all of these other things that she's done, not discarded, but simply gathered and sifted. And she says it was like she was trying to put on clothes that other people thought would be a good fit for her. But there was always something a little bit, uncomfortable about it. And she spent many years building other people's platforms and now has discovered a platform that she feels is more about her and her heart for others. And she said something quite profound. So when I asked her, how did you know, that this was it, how did you know that you were operating from that place of identity? And she said, when I was trying to figure out who I was, that's when it happened. So the whole point is know who you are and the rest will follow. Why would we care about that? It seems to me, from what I've observed in my own experience, the importance of knowing who you are and being rooted and centered in that place is it gives resilience and strength when we go through trials and hardships and failures. It also helps us to weather success. So whether something fails in your life or succeeds, you know who you are and you don't lose sight of that. It also gives life and purpose, not just to ourselves, but for others around us as well. And there's power and there's impact beyond self. So it's not just focused on self. It's actually, I feel, bigger than self. And then that creates a momentum all of its own. I mean, it's very attractive to be around people whose sphere is centered and yet expansive. I don't believe the world needs necessarily more productive, confident, and focused, high-performing engines of success. I believe the world needs more people who are living and working from their place of their truest self, from that identity. And so I would contend that you are needed and that you are valued because of who you are. Thank you.